Bob Jacobson to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance as we start this meeting.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to introduce Jim Devitt, our chaplain of Milton Township, sir. If you would please, chaplain, take it away.
Thank you. For those who wish to stand, please stand. Otherwise, remove your hats. Thank you. O God, the Creator, preserver of all mankind, we humbly ask you for relief in all dark and negative conditions of men and women, that you would be pleased to make your ways known to them. Your saving health unto this United States, the state of Illinois, DuPage County, and Milton Township, as these men and women prepare to do business on behalf of its citizens, that they may be so guided and governed by thy good spirit, that all who profess faith may be led into the way of truth and hold the faith in unity of spirit in the bond of peace and in righteousness of life. Finally, we commend to your fatherly goodness all those who are in ways affected or distressed in mind, body, or estate, especially those for whose interest we work towards tonight, that it may please you to comfort and relieve them according to their several necessities, giving them patience under their sufferings and happy issuance of all of their afflictions. And we beg this in your name's sake.
Amen. Chaplain Jim, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Clerk Marconi, can I get a roll call?
Absolutely. Trustee Castle?
Here.
Trustee Ellis?
Here.
Trustee Blanco? Here. Trustee Soto? And Chairman Leo?
Here. So today we're going to kind of jump past, before we do the minutes and the agenda and whatnot, approval of, where we have a great day. A very good friend of the township, Bob Jacobson, is here with us. And it's a proclamation. Whereas we are here today to express our appreciation of Bob Jacobson and honor him for his distinguished 22 years of dedicated service to Milton Township Cemetery Authority. Bob began his service in the Cemetery Authority in 1988 and served as chairman. Bob's service extends well beyond the Cemetery Authority, as he's been a very active resident in DuPage County and in Milton Township. On behalf of the Office of Township Supervisor and the entire Board of Trustees, I want to express our sincerest appreciation for Bob and his loyalty to Milton Township and the Cemetery Authority. I wish you much happiness and on all of your future endeavors. Therefore, John Menino, Supervisor of Milton Township, here do proclaim this Tuesday, November 9th, 2021, as Bob Jacobson Day. A placard. Thank you so much, Gary. Very nice to see you today. This is a key to the, a pin to the township. And I want to offer that to you. And as I sign this proclamation, today, Bob Jacobson, this is your day.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Can I say a few words?
You absolutely may after I present the award. How about that first?
Oh, I'm not used to this. Wow.
Absolutely, you may say.
Well, I see there's a great crowd here, so I should, I spent 20-some years preserving cemeteries here in Milton Township. And I have to say that when we started this 25 years ago, the only people that would support us was Milton Township. And we've done it. Back when we started, the state of Illinois announced that there were 1,100 abandoned cemeteries in Illinois. We had 3 of them in Milton Township. And we went to work. We got the support of the Joliet Diocese, and preserved and restored St. Stephen on the north side up in Carroll Stream, Jewel Cemetery, you know Jewel Road. Well, Mr. Jewel's tombstone, about 30 pieces. So we name a road, but we forget the individual. And then Pleasant Hill, where we bury indigents and veterans. And I'll tell you, burying an indigent is something. I just put my hand on the casket and say, Charlie, good luck, or Mary, good luck. So this is all taking place in Milton Township. Sorry, I got my back to you. And they're the ones that deserve the thanks. My philosophy, we've lived here, Caroline and I have lived here for 50 years. My philosophy is volunteerism and the preservation of history is a key thing. And I hope when you all leave here tonight, you think about that. We've got to preserve our history. We've got to preserve our history. And the township has led that. And they deserve the thanks. So good luck to you all. It's nice to see you all here. And thank you very much.
Caroline, thank you so much as well. You're more than welcome.
Gary, do you want to stay for a while?
Okay.
Gary's
Take
just been
your
into
word
the
and run.
hospital, so he was kind enough to come up here with me. So and I'm not in the best of shape, as you can see. Everything's going wrong.
Thank you.
He's been such a good friend to this township, and I'm so happy and honored that you've honored a very good friend of mine and mentor to this township and to many of us. So thank you so much for helping me with the applause and whatnot. Yes, Mary. Guys, you can come on up. Mark Franz, how are you, Mark? Okay.
3 more seats up here if anybody needs one.
On. So now we will have an approval of the agenda. Can I have a motion to approve? Motion.
Second.
Thank you so much. Those little phony little readers. Okay, thank you. Can you call a roll?
Sure, trustee Gassel? Yes. Trustee Ellis?
Yes.
Trustee Malenko?
Yes.
Supervisor Wiebe?
Yes. Okay, there were we had a special meeting as well, November 2nd, that we'll have to have another motion, if I could get a motion. That's what I mentioned, but I forgot to mention both.
No, you just did roll call.
We did cover it. We're good.
No,
Okay.
we need a motion to approve both meeting minutes.
If I could get a motion to approve both meetings, please.
I will approve both. Second.
Okay, thank you so much. Can I get a roll call on that?
Sure. Trustee Castle. Trustee Ellis.
Yes.
Trustee Malenko.
Yes.
Supervisor Menino.
Yes. Tonight we sat before a pile of bills and checks, and we paid those out, and all the trustees and myself had an opportunity to look them over and sign. And I need an approval and a motion to approve the claims.
So moved.
Okay, can I get a roll call on that, please, Clerk Nuffman?
Trustee Malenko.
Yes.
Trustee Ellis.
Yes.
Trustee Castle.
Yes.
Supervisor Menino.
Yes. At this time, we're going to allow public comment. If I may, get just a moment, obviously having a nice room full of people. And I would just like to mention that there are minutes that you have, which are 3. We have a timer up here. If you can please watch your time, I'd like you to state your name and please, for the record, who you are and where you're from. That would be great. And I would now ask if there's anyone that would like to speak. Okay. So I'm going to say that the first hand up was back here, Mary Ozog, if you don't mind. And then over here we have Paula and Mike.
It's okay. This morning I woke up to the news.
So sorry, can you tell us?
Oh,
I
forgive me, I'm sorry.
know who you are, for sure.
My name is Mary Ozog, and I am your District 4 representative on DuPage County Board.
Silence your phones, please.
And I just want to speak tonight about the 708. I woke up this morning to the news that one of my oldest, dearest friends' son died a few weeks ago from an overdose. Last month, we buried one of my children's friends from St. Cuts, an overdose, and we've also lost 2 other young men in our circle of friends in the last few years. And tonight, I just want to say that drugs, COVID, and mental health are all intertwined, and we've all been through an awful lot the last few years. But I think that what we really need to look at is that in this last election, the voters, which elected all of you, the voters have spoken and have recognized the need for increased mental health needs in Milton Township. Last week, I heard 2 of the best presentations that I've ever heard in my 11 years as an elected official. And I have great faith that if the board tonight decides to allocate the entire amount that they're asking for, that this money will be well spent and that the need is great. So please tonight consider the needs of our community and vote for the amount that that was asked for last week. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you so much. I also asked Paula Smith. You had your hand raised next.
I did, yeah.
If you may, you can stand there, or you can come up here if you'd like.
My name is Paula Smith. I'm a resident of Milton Township. We've been here about almost 12 years. I'm also a grandmother of 13, and I have a grandson who has Down syndrome. I feel that he is also in DuPage County. He has had such wonderful service from so many different organizations, from Easter Seals to I can't even think of all of the names of the organizations that have helped him. But I'm very much aware of the emotional and financial trauma that affects a family when there is someone who has a disability, special needs. But I'm very proud that we are in DuPage County, where there are many, many organizations that provide the kind of help that people need when they are in distress. These organizations are currently funded by taxpayers through the federal, state, and county governments, and also generous donations from private citizens. And I think that's really a key to what we need to consider, that private citizens are also an important and integral part of funding for the kinds of services that we need. I recently sent some data to the board that summarized a study of nonprofit groups and looked at how they actually use the resources that they get. In that study, they determined that the best organizations actually spent only 7.5% on administrative fees. And all the money, all the other money went to the people who really needed it. And I would want all of you, the board especially, to consider looking at the data that's out there for charitable organizations and how they do spend their money. I'm also presenting to the board today a list of mental health services that are currently available in DuPage County, of which there are many. And the list includes services that are provided both by government and nonprofit organizations. Many of these nonprofits do not charge a fee to the individual who needs those services. The Crisis Intervention Unit of the DuPage County Health Department offers professional counseling and is open 24 hours a day for emergencies, which is really amazing. Metropolitan Family Services of DuPage also offers counseling and states that no one is denied service for the inability to pay. The People's Resource Center, DuPage County Catholic Charities, and the Salvation Army also offer a wide range of services that includes counseling. I would highly encourage anyone who is interested in providing additional monies to the mental health. Sorry, I should talk faster. Thank you. Mental health services to donate directly to the nonprofits. This will ensure that your contributions go specifically to people who need them in your community. And in this way, you can financially support the needs of the community without increasing taxes on those who can barely afford to pay them now. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Yes, Chief Norton, come on up. You want to just slowly slide your hand up if you did have a comment.
I want to thank the board for the opportunity to speak tonight. Go ahead. Any special treatment just because of the uniform. Greetings. My name is Philip Norton. I'm the Chief of Police for the Village of Glen Ellen and a board member of the Glen Ellen Youth and Family Counseling Services, and a member of a parent-led organization called You Will Be Found, whose mission is to end teen suicide. I thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight, and I thank you to Shannon Hartnett for the invitation. I understand there are some key competing interests, and I understand there's some concern over the rate of the levy. I also am aware that you are interested in hearing the gaps in mental health services. First, let me say, you cannot overfund these efforts. You cannot give too much. The need is that great. We have got to do more to provide services to our residents, especially our youth. We need to do more to identify at-risk youth. Then, and this represents our largest service gap, we need to do more to follow up and make sure people are provided with the aftercare they so desperately need. In Glen Ellen, we do a great job of crisis intervention in the field, in the moment, at the scene. Our officers are trained, empathetic, and skilled in relating to people in crisis. But what about the day after? After we leave, or after they are transported to the hospital, we need to fill that gap of follow-up care to have someone case manage that person and make sure they are receiving the care they want and need. You have received a letter from Tim McGrath, President of the Glen Ellen Youth and Family Services, in which he has outlined a path forward to provide that care. Our need is the funding. In Glen Ellen alone, since September 11th, less than 2 months ago, we have experienced 3 suicides under the age of 26. 2 of them are teenagers. This needs to stop. We can train our officers, we can find appropriate counselors, but we need your help. You cannot overfund this. I spoke to Sheriff Mendrick tonight as he could not be here, and he spoke of sympathetic resources, the aftercare programs I mentioned. To his great credit, guests in his jail receive tremendous care, education, and training. But once they are released, there needs to be follow-up care. That is the gap. Without the sympathetic resources, the rehabilitation and outside support, people will become his guests again, or worse. We all need to be in this together. Our residents have signed petitions and voted. The mental health professionals are constantly sharing information and strategies. First responders are answering the call and preventing many more problems than actually occur. And we are all working together, and now we need your help. You cannot overfund this. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Yeah, I'll get to everyone. We're gonna ask Mike, Chuck, we'll get to Mike, yes, please.
First of all, I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is Mike Murray. I live in Roselle in Bloomingdale Township. We're the first township to have a mental health board. When Milton Township passed the mental health board referendum, it chose to become what we refer to in our Bloomingdale Township Mental Health Auxiliary as a Heart for Change community. Heart for Change communities, when faced with tough challenges, do not ask, why tackle this issue, but instead respond, why not tackle this issue? In keeping with this thought, and I admit I am an outlier in this, but I count myself as privileged to pay all my taxes, including the real estate tax, and I might add to receive the help and benefit from people like Chief Norton from the many important things they fund. I do understand and respect the concern for those who find paying those taxes a real burden, from both a financial and philosophical point of view. And I heard that point expressed last week, which is why I brought a copy of my real estate taxes to share with you. Because Milton Township has a larger tax base than Bloomingdale, the amount proposed for your first budget is, I believe, very slightly less than what I paid in each of the years reflected in my tax bill. And your proposed levy will raise more money, which is very necessary since wages and material costs have risen. For 2019, and this is a public record, I'm happy to give anybody my address, I paid $16.67 at a levy rate of 0.214%. That $16.67 was a scant 0.2667% of the total tax bill of about $6,200, well below the 1% mark. From that amount, our township was able to tackle lots of tough problems. We put social workers in all our police departments. We funded programs from the YWCA. We helped old people with scholarships. And these were all things that were not funded. That's part of the law, is that you give funds for things that cannot be funded. From that amount, our township was able to tackle lots of tough problems and help lots of my neighbors. And most importantly, I hope and forestall or mitigate lots of both present and future problems. I share my tax bill because I hope it will encourage each of you on the board to take a leadership role and confound the vocal critics. In other words, to have a heart for change, as our Bloomingdale Township Board did in 2018 and 2019. Just one more sentence. You follow also in our great American tradition of working together to make the places where we live better. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak.
Our very own Chuck Smith. And I see you behind.
Thanks for the opportunity to speak. For those that don't know me, I'm Chuck Smith. I'm the chairman of the Milton Township Salt Council. The Salt Council's main objective is to try to prevent fraud and abuse from our seniors, and there's a lot of that going around. We try to educate our seniors on scams, and I'll talk a little bit later about that during the SALT presentation. In talking to our seniors, representing our seniors, and answering their needs, one of the most troubling problems they have is being able to live in our community that they have lived in for 50, 60. I'm an advocate now for one family that has lived in their home for 60 years, and they can't afford to live there. Husband had a stroke, wife had a heart attack in December, they're struggling, they're underwater significantly. And in SALT, one of the things we try to do is bring whatever resources we can to help them to age in their home if they possibly can. As you could expect, if you have to move away from a home that's been familiar to you, particularly if you've got a spouse that has dementia, Alzheimer's, it's very, very troubling. In some cases, it's not a home, it's an apartment. I'm working with a senior now who has been repeatedly behind in her rent. So in both cases, we are trying to bring the necessary resources to eliminate financial burden. Start Meals on Wheels, get them on SNAP, see if we can get them eligible for Medicaid. And those are the things we do to try to help our seniors. From a mental stress standpoint, there's nothing worse than thinking that you're going to be getting kicked out of your homes. I mean, it's troubling. I mean, when I first came to this job, I was asked by the sheriff to follow an individual that got evicted from his place in Glen Ellen. He was a senior, he was a veteran, because where are they going to go? I mean, it's very, very difficult. In all these cases, though, I've been happy to report that with the great relationships I've had with so many tremendous organizations in this community, both in the county, I've got a close relationship with Jennifer Chalella, heads up DuPage Community Services. When I come upon a senior that wants me to advocate for them, after talking to them, assessing their needs, I write her a letter saying these are the things that I think we need. She assigns a caseworker, and then I follow up to see how things are going. I'm not a patient person, so I want things done right away, and I'm very passionate about our seniors. And they've given us a lot through the years. We have to give back to them. But paying more taxes is not something they can afford. And it's a very difficult decision. And I know it's been said there was a mandate. We only had, 16.5% of the voters vote in that election. The so-called mandate only passed by 237 votes. But when I looked at one of our large senior communities I represent, and that's the senior community by the zoo in Wheaton Oaks, and that whole area voted 2-1 against it. Why? Because they told me we can't afford any more taxes. We need to push the state, the federal government. I mean, anyone who's driven by 355 and Roosevelt Road see the hundreds of trees they planted. When I went there the other day, there were at least a dozen Illinois state employees working there. Why not spend that money in these great organizations? So, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. My name is Amy Franco. I am the Adult Department Director at the Glen Ellen Public Library, and I just want to say thank you to Supervisor Menino and the board, and also the 708 board. I am here to humbly request your consideration in funding a community-based mental health program at the Glen Ellen Public Library. In 2019, a visiting social work student identified 2 significant areas of need in Glen Ellen, which you heard echoed here today: ending homelessness and substance abuse. As an outcome of several years of research, we began collecting stories about the interactions that would be appropriate to refer to a qualified social worker at the library. I'm going to tell you about 3 people that we've helped just in the last few months at the Glen Ellen Public Library, and I have changed their names to protect their privacy. We've helped Tom find refuge. We've connected Emily to emergency medical services during a life-threatening mental health crisis. And we've helped Anne, a woman in need of accommodations for her disability, in order to receive the COVID vaccine that a nearby pharmacy and clinic could not provide. These interactions happen every day at our busy information desks. There is a growing trend in libraries to offer social services, and we desperately need these services in Milton Township. A full-time, fully funded social worker would cost just over $88,000 annually. Community-based mental health programs have also been associated with reduced hospital admissions and lengths of stay for people in need of behavioral health services, and reduced rates of crime, among other benefits. We're grateful for any assistance you can provide for us to more effectively serve the many vulnerable people at our library and in our community. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Absolutely. President of Glen Ellen, Mark Senek.
How do you do? My name is Mark Senek, and I am the sitting president of the Village of Glen Ellen. I served as trustee for 6 years before I became president, so I have some historical perspective on the issue of mental health. I would like to first thank the board for your service to the community and the opportunity to speak here this evening. You are presented with a great opportunity. The board has been vested with the authority and the means to make a real difference in the lives of the residents of Milton Township. But with that opportunity comes a great challenge. Our primary challenge is to help those who suffer from mental illness feel better about their particular circumstance and to become more productive members of our society. But we must do so by crafting a plan that complements the existing services that are provided by groups in our communities rather than simply duplicating the services that are already there. Otherwise, two groups will suffer. First will be our taxpayers. They will pay increased taxes for no improvements in mental health services. And the problems associated with those services, or with the mental illness, will continue in our community. But more important, those in need of mental health services will likewise suffer, because the improvement in the quality and availability of mental health services will not result. And they will just continue to suffer from the illnesses that they have. Glen Ellen has a number of not-for-profit companies. One of them you heard about tonight, Glen Ellen Youth and Family Counseling. They do a great job. And when I came on the board, we started to fund them, and it became obvious that what they had was plenty of people who could do the job. They were ready, willing, and able to do it. But what they didn't have was the money to do it. And so what we've done over the years is we've tried to increase their funding. When I started on the board, their funding was $25,000, and I quickly realized that that was just a drop in the ocean of need. We've tripled that funding, but that's just 3 drops in an ocean of need, and that ocean keeps getting bigger. What I'm suggesting to you is that when you decide how to appropriate whatever amount of money that you decide, that you look to the existing agencies in the communities in Milton Township that are already doing this job, but cannot do it as well as they could because they simply lack the money. So my suggestion to you is block grant the money to agencies like Glen Ellen Youth and Family Counseling and the other agencies in the area, or the Glen Ellen Public Library, who is ready, willing, and able to do the job. If you do that, you will have the most efficient use of those funds, and more importantly, you will deliver those funds immediately. Because as we've heard, there is an immediate need, certainly in our community. And we can't wait to build hospitals, we can't wait to build buildings, develop policies. We need help now. And the best way to do that is to take the money and put it into the hands of the people who have done this job and will do this job and have the ability to do this job. So I urge you that whatever amount of money you decide to levy, that you give it to the people who are willing to do the work that needs to be done. Thank you.
Captain America. No problem at all.
Thank you for your time. My name is Sonny Duran, and I serve as the Vice President of Development and Innovation at B&A Healthcare. Thank you, Kara, for inviting me here to talk today. B&A was founded over 103 years ago, and we strive to improve health equity and reduce health disparities in the communities that we serve. We currently serve over 7,000 individuals with and without insurance each year, and our service area includes Milton Township. We have 16 locations throughout Kane, DuPage, and Will counties. In DuPage County, we have 2 health centers in Carroll Stream, one at the DuPage County Health Department, and one in Benson, sharing residents throughout these regions. We also have community health workers, rehabilitation and education throughout the region. Provide comprehensive primary care enabling services for some of our most vulnerable patients, including mental and behavioral health care, and also offer services such as medications, assisted treatment for substance abuse disorders, mesh family case management, and home visitation for families in need. 9% of the diverse population of all services of all ages served by VNA fall at or below the federal poverty level. Approximately 30% are uninsured. This population is at increased risk of health disparities. In DuPage County, as in the case of most counties across the nation, demand for mental and behavioral health services continues to grow, and many people are experiencing long wait times for appointments. VNA offers collaborative mental health and family care services in an effort to provide integrated holistic care for those people in need. Data from the DuPage County Health Department shows increases from the prior reporting period for many measures related to mental health. These include the age-adjusted ER visit rate for adults at 105.6 per 10,000 population, adolescent suicide intentional self-inflicted injury rates at 108.4 ER visits per 10,000, age-adjusted hospitalization rates for pediatric mental health needs is at 55.3, with an adult rate of 52.1. Depression in the Medicare population exceeds the prior value and is also trending up. In VNA's patient population, mental and behavioral health disorders rank as the second highest diagnosis and is often present along with other chronic conditions such as diabetes. Funding from the 784 that includes Aurora supports VNA's delivery of home visiting services for new parents to reduce risks for neglect and abuse in families. VNA continues to seek funding support for delivery of mental and behavioral health services in order to improve access to care for some of our most vulnerable neighbors. We provide care for pediatric adult patients and also partner with agencies across the area, DuPage PADS, Metropolitan Family Services, school districts, Age Guide, Access DuPage, and of course the DuPage County Health Department. Thank you for the opportunity to share our work and the growing needs for mental health services within the population that resides in our service area, and for your consideration in the issue of levy funding to support on that needs. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to comment this evening. My name is Barbara Cerny, and I'm the grants administrator for Ray Graham Association. And we are an organization that provides supports and services to about 2,000 people with disabilities in DuPage County and 35 sites. And we've been doing this for about 70 years. I think it is really important this evening to emphasize the sufficient funding of the Milton Township 708 Board. As was stressed in the last meeting, Illinois ranks 47th in terms of fiscal effort provided for community-based services like those provided by Ray Graham Association. And there is currently a waiting list of 18,500 people in need of these services. The people in this township needing services are unlikely to receive the support they need without the sufficient funding of this 708 mental health board. RGA is currently providing employment services to high school transition programs in Bloomingdale Township from funding from that mental health board that Mike was just talking about. The unemployment rate for people with intellectual developmental disabilities is almost twice as high as the general population. The need for employment services has increased after the pandemic as people are needing to get back to work and with the urgency to fill important jobs in the community. RGA Employment Services to transition students covers job exploration, training, and outreach. Skills like navigating public transportation and connecting to support at work contribute to the 85% employment retention rate for those supported by our organization. And there is no state funding in place for job exploration and outreach. Providing people with disabilities the necessary skills and opportunity to find jobs with the great need of local businesses to fill critical roles is a key step to recovery after the pandemic and beyond. RGA would like to provide these same critical employment services for the transition programs for students with disabilities in 2 Milton Township high schools. The cost to provide these exploration classes in 2 high schools to get these programs started would be about $40,000 a year. The cumulative effects of the pandemic have increased the need for people with disabilities and others who have experienced social isolation, loss of important skills, depression, and overall strain on families. It's important that we are proactive to increasing needs of people with disabilities and mental health issues to provide them with necessary services. The ample funding of this mental health board will provide funding for services that will create a stronger and healthier Milton Township. I would like to express support from RGA for the original funding recommendation of the Milton Township Mental Health Board. Thank you.
See you back there.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Bill Peterson. I'm the Director of Development for Samira Care. We are a nonprofit behavioral health counseling firm that was started 50 years ago by 3 neighborhood churches to meet the unmet mental health needs of the community. Fast forward 50 years, and now we're meeting those unmet needs throughout the 6-county metropolitan area. Milton Township is actually our 3rd largest county, or township that we serve throughout our whole metropolitan area. I want to talk to you a little bit about what we do. Obviously we take a lot of for-fee clients, but a great part of our mission is to serve those that can't afford mental health care. And about 25 to 30% of our client base at any given time cannot afford services. So where do they go? Well, one, if they can't afford services, they're likely to forego treatment or have irregular treatment, which can actually further perpetuate a mental health crisis. Cost is a huge issue. Unlike a one-time visit to a doctor, mental health care can take many sessions and can go over months or years depending on the severity of their mental illness, and cost is a huge factor. There are resources in the county, but when you look at them, there aren't a lot of affordable mental health care options for them. Sure, there are private practices, but they're not designed to provide free or low-cost mental health care. County health departments basically treat the chronically and persistently mentally ill, which is a small proportion. Where does everybody else go? And then you have Medicare. Not a lot of providers take Medicare because of its bureaucratic requirements and low pay. So what we do, we spend on average about $500,000 each year and give away on a sliding fee scale to those clients that can't afford it so that we can make sure they get the help they need to achieve their greatest potential. I'm here today to ask the board to consider looking at nonprofits that do this. Nonprofits have also gone through a fairly seismic shift from the economic and psychological fallout from COVID. Many nonprofits are not getting the funding they need now. A lot of nonprofits are funded not only from individual donations, but they're funded from churches. Churches aren't giving like they used to because they weren't meeting and they weren't having rummage sales to be able to give donated dollars. Rotary clubs, JCs, Kiwanis didn't have special events. A lot of this event money was then given to nonprofits. That has disappeared. It goes on and on. Grant funders, they've either curtailed or furloughed granting. I'm talking more of public funding agencies, even private foundations have stopped. So the need for funding has really gone to individual donors who are being tapped to the limit. Funding from an agency like the 708 Board will help ensure some parity so that we can get the funding to continue services. And I would ask you to consider that and look at nonprofits that do this so that we can continue to help everybody in this community achieve their greatest potential. Thank you.
Samira Care?
Samira Care, yes. SAMARACARE.
We've got 2 in the back there. Erica, you can come on up and then following that. And then there's others that are, you're all going to get a turn.
Thank you. My name's Erica Bray Parker. I'm a Wheaton resident, Milton Township resident. I'm a mom of 2 college boys, raised in Wheaton, and also a high school teacher of 28 years. And I have the distinct honor of serving on the Wheaton City Council. I'm here to speak in favor of a high level of funding for the 708 Board. I'm mostly here as an educator. I can't think of a more critical time for our communities to have greater access to mental health services. If you know any educator in your life, ask them what's going on right now in the schools. For some of us, the global pandemic heightened our struggle with mental health, but for all of us, the global pandemic shone a bright spotlight on exposing mental health crisis in our communities. There is a need for these services, and I agree, I think it was the chief that said, we can't over-service this issue, especially at this time. Right now, where I teach, Glenbard North uses the Bloomingdale Township Mental Health Board, raves about it for years. Also, right now where I work, and I have good friends throughout my 28-year career in education, in the Wheaton schools, the Glenbard schools, Our social workers, our guidance counselors, our school psychologists are overwhelmed. Our classroom teachers, like myself, are overwhelmed as we focus on the social emotional needs of the kids and the trauma-informed practices that we need to do. We need help. We definitely need help. And so again, I'm just asking, and with high schools, we have these services. There's a lot of grade schools that don't even have the services that we have, and they're in need of them. Just today, I spoke with a guidance counselor at length about a student of mine who's just plummeted in her grades, high-performing student, plummeting in her grades, and it's at home that she's having the mental health issues with a family member. That, as educators, isn't something we can service there in school. We're a little helpless, but community organizations can. So again, I just support a high level of funding for that, and I thank you for your time and thank you for your service.
My name is Carn Daly. I'm a 10-year resident of Milton Township. I spoke here last week, and I think you remember that I talked about the 3 reasons that you needed to fund this. I'm going to add a fourth, and we heard from Chief Norton from Glen Ellen that the police are in favor of fully funding this. And I've seen some bumper stickers here, and they do say back to blue, so if you do back to blue, I think you need to listen to Chief Norton. I'm also here to speak on, into the record for Gilda Ross, who's the Glenbard Student Community Projects Coordinator, who does an amazing job with the series called the Glenbard Parent Series, which I'm sure many of you have heard of. So the Glenbard Parent Series, Navigating Healthy Families, is an educational consortium dedicated to presenting distinguished, relevant, high-profile authors, clinicians, and educators who share their research-based knowledge and practical wisdom. Our mission is to enhance the positive development, resilience, and well-being of all students by building relationships, coping strategies, and responsible decision-making skills. All caregivers and students are welcome to these free, now virtual conversations as we engage with experts about opportunities and issues families face in these challenging times. GPS is a resource for parents, educators, students, and community members to foster self-empowered children who collaborate, communicate, embrace diversity, create, and think critically. This year's 50 GPS programs, 50, offered free of charge in both Spanish and English. It's clear that COVID-19 pandemic and the resulting economic recession has negatively affected many people's mental health and created new barriers for people suffering from mental illness and substance use disorders, impacting the need for this valuable resource to not only continue but grow. Prior to this pandemic, young adults were already at a high risk of poor mental health and substance use disorder. Throughout the pandemic, anxiety, depression, sleep disruption, and thoughts of suicide, and even suicide itself, as we've heard tonight, have increased for many young adults due to disruption in routines, loss of social contact, or stress in the household. And of course, substance use and suicidal ideation are pronounced for young people, particularly among Black and LGBTQ+ youth. Populations that are particularly at risk for experiencing negative mental health or substance abuse consequences during the pandemic include young adults, parents and children, and communities of color, the communities that GPS serves. There is a tremendous need for funding to support these critical programs. Your financial assistance in the amount of $20,000 for this particular program would have an immediate positive effect, helping us educate additional families. Best regards, Gilda Ross, Glenbard Student and Community Projects Coordinator. Thank you very much.
Okay, so can I get a raise of hands of who's still about to talk? Kind of zigzag back if that's okay. Go ahead.
Thank you for your time this evening. I'm Marianne Picorni. I'm with the YWCA Metropolitan Chicago. And I just want to speak a little bit to the grant we received in Bloomingdale Township, which has made a huge difference. We represent the child care resource and referral. So we work with all the child care providers within DuPage, Kane, and Lake counties. Specifically, Bloomingdale Township, we were funded to provide mental health services to child care providers and do screenings. And I can assure you, we have worked together. I see so many of my partners, Jerry and Janine, and we work together to make sure we are not duplicating services. Our program is the early childhood space, but we're really working on prevention. Every dollar that you spend on early childhood is told, $13 is what you can expect on your return on an investment. We work with Easter Seals, we do screenings. Our child care providers are not prepared. I'm taking a little pivot. I was listening to what some of them were saying today about grants being federally funded. Like the child care assistance is the federal funded pass-through money, right? So it comes through the Illinois Department of Human Services. But there's a misnomer. There's no built-in mental health space in that child care prevention grant. So even though we know schools are certainly underfunded, what we're hearing today, children in crisis, right? There's no built-in for child care providers. They have children and families in crisis all the time. You're talking here youngest when their brain development is so maximum at the point in time. And there's nobody that they can turn to. Today, just today, we had a child care provider call our office. They're dealing with a family who's got special needs and they're homeless. And they're coming into their child care and she wants to maintain her job and a roof over her head. There is no support system built within that network. The money from Bloomingdale Township has allowed us to put that in place. And we work with the schools. We work with the home visiting programs that are represented here. So we're not duplicating. We're really being good stewards of every dollar that's given to us. And we promise to be able to do that. And then as a resident of Bloomingdale Township, I'm proud to say that my own family has experienced issues and there was no coordinated piece of care. But you know what? Because of what's funded at Bloomingdale Township, I was able to pick up that phone and we knew because we worked together. And my family never got immediate care. And that would not have happened if Bloomingdale Township was not funded. And so I just want to really have you consider the maximum amount because I'm telling you, with these littlest ones, you are going to make a huge difference. And maybe we won't need all these remedial programs, suicide programs, drug prevention. We're really giving them a solid base. And so I promise we will be good stewards of the money. We will work together. And I thank you for your time.
This and the person in the back, and I apologize. Excuse me, no person? Yes. We'll come right back. And your time started 10 minutes. Take your time.
Yes, my name is Harold Longs. I'm a Milton Township resident. It was very interesting to listen to all the comments, or the mental health experts and so on. And it's interesting to hear. And it's amazing, I hear the at-risk students, suicides were mentioned. But the amazing thing is our government shut down schools, activities, no socializing, stay in the house for months and months and months. We got back to school, they shut the schools down again. And then what do you expect kids to do? That's why suicide drug rates are up. Then we have a state that legalized marijuana. And now you want us as taxpayers in Milton Township to subsidize substance abuse after the state, approved all these laws that allow drug use. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not against mental health. I'm just a little mystified about the 708 board levy for $1.1 million. I looked at the township website, there was no information on the 708 board, hardly any information I should say. I did look at the Bloomingdale Township, and there was enough information to show you what they do, their guidelines and everything, but there's nothing here on the Milton Township. There is no requirements or guidelines on the website. Has the board received or approved any grant application for funds? If so, who and where can this grant applications can be found? And has a budget been put together for the 708 board? And if so, has it been made public for review? If not, how can you levy for $1 million in funds? And what is the overhead of $150,000 going to be used for? And then what is the rush to fund the board without a game plan and budget? I hope this board doesn't approve the $1.1 million. However, I think the board should approve some money, like $150,000 or $100,000 levy, to get the administration going to find out what the exact needs are and let the applications come in and see what the grant needs are before we just set up $1 million fund. And the Milton Township, as a taxpayer, I know we're already paying very high property taxes. And now with the current inflation running at over 5%, your property taxes are going to go up with the PTEL calculations. And now, the township wants to add additional levy to the taxes. I think, enough taxes. The township should be looking at ways to cut spending and taxes in these trying times and not raising them. Thank you.
My turn? Oh, no. Yes.
Okay.
everyone. My name is Mariola Casper. I'm a program director with Metropolitan Family Services, a local nonprofit. We have an office just 5 minutes away from here. I am here to speak to supporting the funding of mental health services. Like mentioned, our nonprofit. We've been around for 160 years. We provide mental health services to the lifespan, really from little children to our oldest, most vulnerable adults. We serve all the towns in Milton Township. We have 2 physical locations just in down the street. Also a location in Woodridge and other locations through our early childhood education services, where we support families of children under the age of 5 and getting them ready for kindergarten and setting them up for success. We also provide some legal aid services to vulnerable families in DuPage County, and we provide comprehensive supports to families who have experienced domestic violence or currently experiencing domestic violence. So, it's no surprise probably to most of you, the demand for mental health services has increased tremendously. Just at Metropolitan here in DuPage, we've seen an increase in over 130% in requests for mental health services. We cannot keep up with the demand. With staff, our waiting lists keep growing. Families are suffering. I want to highlight 2 populations in particular: our domestic violence survivors and our seniors. Many of our domestic violence survivors are not covered by insurance, or if they are covered by insurance, that insurance may be held by the alleged perpetrator of the violence, therefore making it unsafe for the survivor to utilize insurance to get supports that they need. That is where we see a big gap and a need to fund services for those folks. And then in our senior population, we've experienced a devastating cut in mental health services for our seniors just this year, and over more than half of our funding to provide counseling services to our seniors, who the state defines as adults 60 years old and older, have been cut. I think the word devastating it does not cover how we feel and our staff feel about this cut and all the folks that we have waiting for services. So I want to wrap up with my support of funding for mental health services.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Dave Roth, and I'm Executive Director of DuPage Federation of Human Services Reform. I appreciate the chance to give testimony tonight. I couldn't possibly match the direct service providers who are here and who have talked about the level of need. And I have incredible appreciation for them. DuPage Federation is a planning council for human services in DuPage. We've been listening to the providers over the past 1.5 to 2 years talk about the impact of COVID on their work, and I could not begin to describe to you the pressures that they've been under to meet an increased demand. Let me talk about that very briefly. As a planning council, 5 years ago, we did an analysis of the entire county's ability to provide mental health services. In 2016, that capacity was inadequate. And one of the largest issues is the inability of organizations to find and keep and retain qualified therapists of all kinds. It's very difficult. Turnover is high as the demands are high and the pay is relatively low. So in 2016, we did not have capacity to meet the need. Come forward now into the age of COVID. Within the Census Pulse survey told us that the symptoms of experience of symptoms of anxiety and depression went up 4-fold. Now, that spike has not declined in the way that we have seen the economy return. It has dipped a little bit, but that symptomology remains about 3 times where it was before. So when you're hearing stories about increased demand of 100% and 125%, if we talk directly to people in communities, it's 3 times higher. And that's the burden that they're carrying and trying to find a way to... So, my congratulations to the residents of Milton Township for approving the Mental Health Board. I encourage you to fund at the highest level. We recently conducted a study, a gap analysis of mental health needs in Lyle Township to the south. DuPageFederation.org, you'll find that study, and you may find things that would be helpful to you. So that's my pitch. I encourage you to fund at the max level. Thanks for the opportunity to share.
Yes, please. You're.
I'm here to read the statement on behalf of my boss, Teresa Forthover, who apologizes that she cannot be here in person. She's the president and CEO at Easter Seals DuPage in Fox Valley, as well as the mother of 2 adult children with muscular dystrophy. The oldest son was diagnosed at the age of 7 and therefore did not have the advantage of early intervention rehabilitation services. When her youngest was born, due to the severity of his delays, he was diagnosed with muscular dystrophy and almost immediately, and after a few years, was also diagnosed with autism. She shares this story with you because, well, she sees the impact in the lives of our families who serve at Easter Seals. She also lives it every day. At 21, her youngest has surpassed all expectations, which she directly attributes to receiving therapy services in the first 5 years of his life. During the first 5 years, a child's brain is at its most flexible. In fact, children's brains develop connections faster in the first 5 years than at any other time in their lives, making this a critical period for learning and growth and creating millions of connections in their brains. Science tells us that children who face adversity in the first years of life are more at risk for experiencing lifelong effects. Unfortunately, due to poor reimbursement, high deductibles, and denials for services from insurance providers, Easter Seals DuPage remains one of the only pediatric therapy providers serving Milton Township that accepts all insurance, including Medicaid and early intervention. Therefore, our revenue does not cover the cost of services, and we rely on 20 to 25% of our funding to come from the community. Township 708 Board funding has helped families served by Easter Seals from the city of St. Charles, Bloomingdale Township, and Monmouth Township, and has enabled us to become key collaborator partners in these communities. Over the years, township funding has enabled Easter Seals the opportunity to screen thousands of babies, toddlers, and children for developmental delays and social and emotional challenges, provide thousands of therapeutic individualized evaluations, provide direct therapeutic intervention to uninsured and underinsured children, support the emotional and mental health needs of children with disabilities and their families, collaborate more effectively with other service providers in the community. We currently serve over 200 Milton Township residents, and with additional funding, we are positioned to serve even more with a focus for those who are underinsured and underserved. Thank you very much. Would you like this?
Thank you. Yes, that is you. I'm not going to take the microphone away from you.
Hi, I'm Jerry Kurger, Executive Director of NAMI DuPage, and I've also been hi everybody that I know. I've also been a resident of Milton Township for 33 years. I've raised 4 kids here. I have 3 of them who live here, and my youngest who is living in Chicago until he probably gets married and move back here, as my others have done. And I have 8 grandchildren, all who reside in Milton Township. So I'm talking not only as the executive director of an organization that serves 20 to 30,000 people a year dealing with mental health, and now we've expanded that for people with mental health and substance use disorder. I'm not going to duplicate what other people are saying here. You've all had some really wonderfully cogent and really important points. but I'd like to assure you, based on Bloomingdale Township and other 708s throughout the state, this is not a duplication of services. It is not. Because when the grants are given, the board looks at it and determines what's necessary in the community. So it's not going to be a duplication of services in any way. It's also, for us, for example, we provide services that nobody else does. NAMI does not provide therapy, although we have social workers on our staff, but our model is the lived experience of mental illness. So the people that provide our classes and our programs are people who are living in recovery of mental illness, but they're in recovery, they're fully functioning, but that lived experience is something that you don't get other places. I'd also like to say that many people in this county think, I have Blue Cross and Blue Shield, I'll just call a psychiatrist. I'm telling you, if you've tried to do that, I assure you, you will find months delay. Other people will say, well, you can go to the health department, and the health department is primarily for behavioral services. Mental behavioral services is going to be Medicaid and Medicare. So many people are left with terrible gaps in not getting services. This will fill those gaps. The things we do at NAMI DuPage, we provide classes for individuals as well as families, and families for people who have mental illness. They are a crucial piece of support in getting people into recovery. So we provide all kinds of programs. We see between 15 to 25,000 students in DuPage County schools every year. We provide a wide variety of support classes, including employment classes and more. Again, 20 to 30,000 people a year. We see many people. We could see more, and we could do more with more funding. And I assure you that would be what would be happening. It wouldn't be gaps in services. And I'd also like to say, as a Milton Township resident, is that you pay for some things now and you pay for some things later. And I know that when we have people that are suffering from substance use and mental health, many of those people end up in institutions, they end up in prisons, they end up in our jails. There's higher crime. There are many, many things to consider, and that one way or the other, we need to help these people. And prevention and treatment are always the way to go for our whole community. And I say that as a resident who will be paying more in taxes that I am pleased to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. My brother-in-law, Mike, looks just like him. So funny. Please state your name.
My name is Tom Luttenberger. I've been a resident of Glen Ellen for 23 years now. I'm here to represent Easter Seals of DuPage Potts Valley. As you know, Easter Seals provides therapy services for kids that have developmental, physical, and behavioral challenges. As a father of two children that actually have physical disabilities, I've been able to witness the tremendous outcomes that can be provided by places like Easter Seals. And it's not only, in our case, not only learning how to get through a physical disability, it's the ability to give kids confidence to be able to, thrive in a tough world out there. And so that's something that, I've noticed over the years has been really, really incredible to watch. So much so that I joined the board of Easter Seals, and I am the chair of the finance committee and the treasurer today as well. A couple important points I want to just talk about real quickly. First, and it's been mentioned by a couple of other people up here, is the importance of early intervention for kids that do have challenges. Yet that can be very financially challenging as well. We at Easter Seals, we estimate that Medicaid covers about 50% of the cost. The state of Illinois, for early intervention, covers about 75% of the cost. So that leaves a big gap. Right, and so places like Easter Seals, we rely on, as a nonprofit, we rely on the funding of both public grants as well as the community from donations. And then, secondly, I would just like to stress, Easter Seals today serves about 200 children in Milton Township. But we estimate there's more than 100 other kids that are not getting served today that need to be served. And just to kind of put pen to the paper. hypothetical, say, $100,000 grant would provide over 800 hours of therapy services for kids. That would go a long way in serving those 100+ kids that really need the services that they're not getting today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Yes. Right in the row. You guys can just.
Okay.
My name is Vanessa Roth. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Outreach Community Ministries, but I also lived in Milton Township for the last 48 years. Outreach Community Ministries is a family of social service organizations serving the most vulnerable children, youth, and families throughout DuPage County. We have comprehensive neighborhood resource centers in 5 communities in DuPage County. But our deepest roots are in Milton Township, as our organization began with our first service site, Wheaton Youth Outreach, over 40 years ago, and we've continued to serve and collaborate throughout Milton Township ever since. In relation to the purpose of the 708 Board, Outreach has 3 community counseling centers, one in Wheaton, one in Carroll Stream, and one in Winfield Township. One in Wheaton serves all of Wheaton, Carroll Stream, and Winfield, and does crisis youth work throughout Milton Township in partnership with police departments and the schools. The Carroll Stream location is in Milton Township and serves all of Carroll Stream, Glendale Heights, including the Milton Township portion of Glendale. Our community counseling centers are actually community mental health centers, accessible to those living in the community and for those not able to afford mental health services offered in private practices in the area. While our centers take most insurance carriers, Medicaid and Medicare, we also have payment through financial scholarships for those who do not have insurance, cannot pay down their deductible, run out of what the insurance payment will cover, or cannot afford the private pay fees. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the gaps in services that we see at our counseling centers. First is the access to services. Currently, the 2 community counseling centers in Milton Township are carrying waiting lists of 40 cases, and at times the waiting lists get as high as 60 to 70 cases, just at those 2 centers. One of our current waiting list that we have at those 2 centers have 53% from the township. The others on the list are there because we offer the crisis youth work and we serve several of the surrounding communities. There isn't a time that Outreach isn't carrying a waiting list, ever. The second gap in service is affordability. Across our 3 counseling centers, Outreach served a total of 700 people this past year, with 450 of those at the 2 centers in Milton Township. Of the total, 39% were non-insured, and they were on our scholarship funds. We're running out of the scholarship funds to sustain those numbers because the numbers keep increasing at our centers. I use the word non-insured as those clients may have had insurance, but we didn't have maybe a therapist on their insurance panel, or the insurance the client had only covered a certain number of sessions, or the client was on our scholarship funds because the deductible was so high that they couldn't pay the payment. So our vision, we hope that the vision for the township is that everybody in the township can have access to their mental health services, and Outreach is poised and ready to help accomplish that vision. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Kathy Parvola, and I'm the Program Director for CASA of DuPage County. DuPage County CASA is a private
nonprofit organization that recruits, trains, and supports volunteer citizen advocates to speak to the best interests of abused, neglected, dependent, and vulnerable children in the DuPage County court system. We provide this at no cost to the taxpayers. CASA stands for Court-Appointed Special Advocates, and a CASA is appointed by the judge to speak up for the children involved in the court process and provide the court information regarding the child's needs while the court is pursuing a child's right to a safe and permanent home. Many of the children in the court system are victims of or have been exposed to domestic violence, substance misuse, neglect, emotional, physical, or sexual abuse by their own parents. Currently, we are serving over 200 children in the court system through no fault of their own, over 100 of whose cases originated in Milton Township. The children with whom our advocates work have suffered trauma, many multiple traumas. They're removed from their parents, they're removed from their home, they're removed from their family. A large portion of the children have mental health and behavioral issues, learning disabilities, developmental delays. Many of their parents also suffer from substance misuse disorders and mental health issues, which prevent them from being the kind of parents that they would like to be. In our experience, for a lot of the reasons you've already heard tonight, it can be difficult for these families to find the services they need. There's long delay, often long wait times for counseling service, substance abuse treatment, psychiatric services, and other community-based services. Transportation is also an issue for many of these families, which further complicates their ability to access these services. Placement options for children who may require more intensive services and therapies are also scarce. In-home services and therapies would be extremely beneficial to these families. The funding to support the 708 programs, our advocates can assist the children and families by connecting them up with the resources that many of these organizations who have previously spoken tonight provide. We work with them, we know a lot of them, and we are constantly trying to connect our family up to some of those resources. We're working to improve our data tracking with respect to the special factors of the children so we can better identify and address specific areas of need. We're also working on advanced training, working with older youth to include components of mental health first aid to identify youth that are experiencing mental health crisis and connect them to potentially life-saving treatments. Thank you for your time.
For letting me speak. My name is Kevin Green and I live in Glen Ellen. I'm empathetic and sympathetic to the need for more mental health funding. More kids have died from suicide than from COVID. Unfortunately, our Illinois politicians exacerbated the problem by closing schools, closing businesses, stopping sports and extracurricular activities, and that only worsened the problem. Don't exacerbate the problem in Milton Township. We have too many people on fixed budgets, especially our seniors, that cannot afford this. Inflation is at its highest in a decade. Food and grocery costs are skyrocketing, as are our energy costs. Someone mentioned we have a large tax base, but that isn't a given. People will be forced to leave the township as they struggle to afford it. I was a Palatine Township trustee, and there's always a good reason to tax and spend more. I have no doubt that many of these organizations do great work. The lady before me with CASA, I volunteered for CASA a number of years. They're a fantastic organization. But individuals should donate their hard-earned money to the organizations that they value, not the township. You are going to increase your annual budget 30 to 40%, but maybe if this issue is so important, you should cut your GA budget to accommodate for it. We all must make tough choices on where we spend, and being fiscally responsible is why you were elected. This is the problem with Illinois. We pass levies, and then we show taxpayers the plan to spend it. I was unable to find any concrete plan on your site that said how the money would be spent, how success will be measured, who will be held accountable. This should all be outlined before you levy a single dollar. You're doing it backwards. The thought process behind this tax increase is why our taxes are already the highest in the country. School boards, village boards, libraries, township, etc. all talk about increasing their levies, only examining their portion to the tax bill. Never the collective of all these boards, and that it adds up quickly and then it compounds. I expect more from this board, and I encourage you to put a plan out for every resident to view before voting on a levy. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
some great organizations here that do wonderful work, and I really admire the type of things. Oh, Lori Carlson, I'm a resident of Milton Township.
We know
since 1977.
Sure.
I have concerns about trying to pass a levy without a plan. And it seems to me, if you do that, you're gonna take the money from the taxpayer, and you may not spend it right. And then you're gonna have some very angry taxpayers. You need a plan. And it's not like I wanna see any of these organizations not have funding. But I bet you could take every single tax dollar that Milton Township residents pay to the county, and it would not be enough money for all these organizations' needs. So you have to have a plan. And if you pass a levy before you have that plan, you're going to spend it wrong. That's all.
Thank you, Lori. Before you start, we're all dehydrated up here. We need some water.
Absolutely.
Sure. Alex Hines, our office manager, thank you so much. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you. My name is Janine Boltman. I'm the coordinator of the Lombard Early Childhood Collaborative. We serve 5 school districts in Glendale Heights, Glen Ellen, Lombard. We've worked very closely with the Bloomingdale Township Board, and as Mary Ann said, you know, a lot of the organizations here today. Our group is a group of community partners who work with families and young children to develop and support an environment where all are safe, happy, healthy, and eager to learn. Many values, it seems like, were really the start of the 708 group. I want to share a little bit of what we've been working on and needs that we've identified in our community. And really, I want to reiterate what Mary Ann said about return on investment in early childhood, that it really is $13 on the dollar. So any investment early really makes a big impact later. One support that we've been working with a lot is home visiting. Currently, primarily serving families with birth to 3-year-olds. Programs such as Healthy Families and Parents as Teachers offer continuous personal visits with a trained professional and show positive results for children and families, including identifying developmental delays early, health problems early. Families are more likely to promote children's language and literacy. Child abuse and neglect is prevented. Parents are experiencing reduced stress and depression levels is a part of being through these programs. One thing we have heard again and again from our parents is that ending at 3 is not enough service. We are fortunate that a few programs serving Milton Township do serve families birth to 5, but they serve a very specific niche of first-time parents or young parents, and currently most home visiting programs are funded by the state or federal government, and they only fund up to 3 years old. Serving up to 5 would significantly increase these benefits that we're already seeing in the programs. We already have established program models in place with evidence-based curriculum for children 3 to 5, we just don't have the funding to support. Another identified increase, or identified need that we have seen, is the increase in awareness of developmental screenings, which I know we talked about with Easter Seals, and we're working with a lot with Bloomingdale Township. And identifying these needs early in children significantly helps us down the road. It can help families connect with Easter Seals, early intervention, home visiting, parent groups, all these supports. And they can be readily available to families in Milton Township, even more so than they are now. In conjunction with home visiting and screenings is the need for parent supports. We've actually worked with Lombard Parent Series in developing an early childhood series for parents with younger kids. It's been amazing, and it's really helped parents identify those points of child development, reducing stressors, supporting mental health. But we've noticed that childcare, the need for language interpretation, is greatly needed to really reach the families who want this information and can't get it. Lastly, a need we've heard across the community is the need for additional infant and child mental health supports for home and private child care programs. I know that's something that Bloomingdale Township has helped the Y do. This presents a challenge to providers who are working really hard to provide a safe and healthy environment for the children they serve, and on the parents who are trying to do the best they can in what they can in finding childcare. I know this is a lot of information. I appreciate you making the space for us to share, and especially for making mental health a priority in Milton Township. And I hope you guys really consider all of this when you're considering your levy. And Lombard Early Childhood Collaborative.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
Hi, my name is Sarah O'Donnell. I'm with Tri-Town YMCA. I represent 237 little kiddos, and it's the same number of votes that were passed for the Milton Township 708 board. These are the shoes that come into my office pretty much on a day-to-day basis of the kids that need help that come to us. 50% of the kids that come to us are on CCAP, which is a child care subsidy program. So that covers them to come to program to us. It doesn't cover mental health services for these kiddos, and there's not enough mental health services that we can outfit to our kiddos too in the community. 100% of the kids that come to us from Milton Township are on CCAP and have identified with a mental health disorder, they are struggling with high stress, or they have thoughts of self-harm. Let me repeat that. 100% of the kids from Milton Township that are coming to us are identifying that way. You heard earlier, $1 is a $13 return on youth. We are one of the only child care providers in Milton Township, in the sliver that we cover of Milton Township, that accepts CCAP for school-age children. To give a picture of what $100,000 could do for our organization, it would provide essentially 3,000 days of out-of-school care or out-of-school time care, which results in $24,000 hours of work hours for parents who are trying to work hard to break through their cycles of poverty, get mental health support that they very much need, and other supports around the community. Please consider the amounts that have been put in front of you, the maximum amount possible, for the health and vitality of our township and the future decision makers in our community. Thank you.
YMCA. Very nice. Anyone else? Give one last shout out. Anyone else? Okay. We're going to close our comments. Thank you for all the public comments. We will go into general assistance and into the chairman's report. We've already talked a little bit about Bob Jacobson and his proclamation. We'll go into the general assistance department and the food pantry. Both are doing very well. We are helping more and more people. The rate is, of course, on the rise with the holidays coming. So we are going to be providing some turkeys and some ham giveaways during the Christmas season, turkeys during the Thanksgiving season. Our food pantry is funded decently right now. The donations are coming up, and we're looking to expand thanks to our trustee Castle, some of his ideas with our director, Rana Johnson, in our general assistance area. So we're excited about that. Enough about that. A little bit about mosquito abatement. With the cold coming in, the West Nile virus threat is gone. Well, we should say it's almost gone. Still warm days ahead, but the science part of it I'm not going to go into, but I'm not likely to see any more of the little mosquitoes coming around. So we'll revisit that sometime in March and through April. Our closure of the books for the assessors department, just wanted to make mention that they're completely closed. The appeals are completed. They went through their 30-day process for the appeals. And November 17th, we'll start the hearings, which sounds like it's going to be anywhere from 3 to 5 business days. Usually it's a lot more than that. So the appeals seem to be coming in lower, thanks to our very own Chris Levan, our assessor, and his team, who work extremely diligent to watch over our tax dollars and tax the companies that should be deserve to be taxed. So I just want to give them a little shout out for all their efforts and hard work. Under miscellaneous and others, on the chairman's report, I'd just like to talk a little bit about right behind you here, we have a table for veterans, and it's a table for the lost soldier. There's a beautiful poem that's on there. Every little piece of that table represents something. I'm not going to go into too much detail. A lot of you know me personally. My father perished in Vietnam, so I just absolutely love that, and very thankful to some of the employees that helped put that together. So in honor of Veterans Day, I'd love to share that. Also, you've probably seen outside that flag that was brought in, the box that was brought in from Doodlebug. Many of you guys know Downtown Doodlebug that works with vocational schooling and helping children with disabilities. And it's unbelievable what they do on the outside of things as well. So there's a box there that up until tomorrow we're going to be collecting various things, toiletries for the current active soldiers, all them big bowls of useless chocolates and candies that you guys don't want to touch. You can bring those by and put those in, and we'll see those off. Also, they're really looking for snacks, energy bars, and etc. So if you guys would love to donate, great. If not, keep it in the back of your mind, because I think that's a program that we'll like to see expand for next year. So the last thing under miscellaneous, I was approached by, this is more for the board, so you guys kind of have to sit and hear this gentleman's cry out to us regarding the amount of garbage trucks in his subdivision. Just as you know, David Garney, I've been in touch with him. He wanted more information on how to put referendums together for his area. And collectively, thanks to our very own Mary Dixon here, our attorney, she's helped me respond to his needs, and it's nothing short of asking for help, trying to figure out how we can put it together. Anyone anywhere in Milton, I'm sure you see 5 different kinds of trucks going by in 5 different days of the week. It's kind of a situation where you got to balance. Are you going to take away someone else's garbage rights to who they use for, and say they have to use someone else's? So we're in a situation where we're just going to help guide them through this process, and if it passes, their neighborhood will pass it. So I will be sending out more information to our clerk and our board this week on it, okay? That being said, we have a couple reports that I'd like to get into quickly, and it is now the time for our town clerk. Yada, do you have anything to...
The only thing I had to report is Marty Keller, our citizen court director, presented a report to me, just for a report to the board.
Yes.
That since the October 12th board meeting, October 14th was the final exercise for granite class. October 23rd, there was the metric rail training exercise. October 30th, multi-agency search and rescue drill. He said upcoming events include November 12th and 13th, train the trainer class, DWA holiday party on November 26th, and the CERT team will be assisting the Wheaton Park District on December 4th.
Anything else to add?
That's it.
Okay, thank you so much for your report. We have our very own, which we got to hear from, our very own SALT, Seniors and Law Enforcement Together Chairman, Chuck Smith. Do you have anything to add, Chuck?
Well, our October event, our senior free auto inspection was a hard act to follow. We inspected, topped off fluids, filled air for 111 different cars for our seniors. We're already getting calls wanting to know when the next event is. They missed it. So it was a great event. Helped a lot of seniors. They were drinking coffee and eating donuts. We were filling their tires, topping off their fluids. Some had no oil. We took care of those too. So it was a great event. October 14th here we had a senior financial scams report given by Arnie Schifrin. He's a retired pharmacist in town. He's our Director of Communications for SALT. He does an amazing job. This was his PowerPoint presentation. I believe we're going to have it on our website. A lot of good information on how so many different groups are trying to, or different people are trying to separate our seniors from their money. And it goes on constantly, whether it's through the mail, telephone calls, emails, etc. Ernie does a great job. It's something we're extremely passionate about, and it goes on and on and on. You know, like from the Wheaton Water Department, we're here to check your water for COVID. We had 2 of those in Wheaton in the last 6 months. I mean, it's amazing. So when they're in the basement, you know, getting water from a 5-gallon bucket, there's 2 other people up stealing their jewelry, stealing their money. $35,000 was lost in one case 4 weeks ago. In the same week, there was $5,000 in jewelry and money. Last Saturday, we had our first SALT senior yard cleanup. I deliver Meals on Wheels on Tuesdays for DuPage Community Services. A great organization. They've done this for years. And so we had a very happy senior in Wheaton. We cleaned up her yard and all of her leaves, 14 bags. Made her real happy. We are going to have to go back because a lot of them are still on the trees. A great event. Yesterday we had our monthly meeting, which we have at the Glen Ellen Police Department. Our speaker spoke on fire prevention and fall prevention. He's the fire inspector for the Warrenville Fire Department, which is in Milton Township. Did a great job. We're going to have here at the township, I don't have him today, fire safety and burn prevention for older adults. Really important, fall prevention, loose electrical cords, carbon monoxide safety, and this great brochure, which I'm going to get hundreds of copies, they hand out, and it's even, if you have a babysitter, what to tell your babysitter relative to fire prevention in your house when they're looking after your children. Not for seniors, but we have grandchildren. I have 13. So, very good information there. Veterans, John mentioned, we played a big tribute at our meeting yesterday to our veterans, many of which are, of course, seniors. Some we still have. They're World War II veterans. I volunteer for Doodlebug Workshop. Out front you'll see the nice wooden base, which our special needs young adults make, and they're for sale at the band shell at Memorial Park here in Wheaton. And every day, tomorrow through Thursday at 4 o'clock, there'll be bagpipes. At 4:30, we've got a beautiful singer, a beautiful voice, should I say, singing very patriotic songs, followed by taps. You'll see all these flags that were installed by the Doodlebug Workshop and all of our special needs kids. A lot of them are adults, but I call them kids. And they're a great organization, and please support them. And there's flags for sale there if you'd like. So, and other than that, other things we're helping with is the Medicare enrollment. Very confusing for people, so we encourage you to call Milton Township or the Glen Ellen Senior Center to get good advice. We're helping the seniors with LIHEAP, double energy assistance. Energy bills will be 35% higher this year. And then, of course, right now we're trying to help our seniors financially with signing them up if they're eligible for the senior freeze, if they're low income, and also for the senior exemption, which is also helping keep our seniors in their home. That's all I have.
Thank you so much, Chuck. Okay. Now, we'd like to talk a little bit about our cemetery authority. I have to the left of me Drew Ellis, who I think had a couple things to say. He co-ops with me as chair on the cemetery authority.
I guess I say, again, kind of talk about Jacobson. You know, I got involved with the Cemetery Authority many years ago, and I worked a lot with Bob. And again, Bob is an incredible guy, and his love and his knowledge of history was somewhat intoxicating. And again, kind of drove me to do some of the things that I did with the Cemetery Authority. The other thing that you might know is that our supervisor also spent a lot of time with Bob, and I'd like to say that they're good friends, and Bob was a good friend to the township, and it was a good mentor to all of us. So I just wanted to reiterate. I know you wanted to also talk about some of the fencing issues.
Sure. Well said. Thank you so much. And, I know if he was here, you'd very much honor him. Bob is 90 years young, by the way.
Wow.
It just really
Non-stop.
the world of him.
Non-stop.
One quick thing about the cemeteries. Several of us that have worked in doing events there have noticed Pleasant Hill, which is on Geneva Road there, is some of the gates are failing. So when you're moving them, it's just really hard to move them, keep them up. You gotta kind of push them up to close them. So we're gonna have those looked at just so you know, this next year. We won't really go into any more of that. We'll take a look at that soon enough. So now we're going to go where I think we've all been waiting for, presentation of our very own 708 board. And I'd like to turn this over to Kara and Shannon. And there are several of the 708 board here today. So thank you, and you're welcome to be here back there. How are you doing? So, I'm going to give you guys the floor. You're doing a presentation for us. I can only say that our time is kind of with you, but at the same time, if you can kind of keep an eye on things. But we're excited that you're here, that you're going to present. So, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Well, a couple of things. I think it would probably be appropriate for us to take a moment and just to introduce the folks that are in the room that are members of the 708 board. This group has asked a lot of this organization, and we take that responsibility very seriously. My name is Kara Murphy. I'm the president of the DuPage Health Coalition. That's my day job, but I'm also a Milton Township resident and also someone who's very passionate on the topic of mental health, substance use disorder, and services for children. I'm going to ask, if I could, to my left for Stephanie to introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Hood. I'm a resident of Glen Ellen. I live there with my husband and 2 small children, and I'm an attorney. I do healthcare defense. I'm also a board member of NAMI. So I'm very happy to be on this board and to serve.
I'm Shannon Hartnett. I'm the Executive Director of Northeast DuPage Family and Youth Services, and I'm also a Wheaton resident, and I'm President of the Milton Township 708 Board.
Pastor Shannon.
She just introduced me. I'm Jim Shannon. I'm pastor of People's Community Church, and we've been in Glen Ellen, the church, for 14 years, and we do a number of ministries that deal with mental health. We do grief ministry, substance abuse recovery, family counseling, a lot of those kinds of ministries that deal with mental health. We've been involved in that in the county, and I can tell you this is something that's very much needed.
Last and certainly not least, Christine.
I'm Christine Evans. I work for DuPage County Community Services. I run a volunteer money management program for seniors that tries to keep seniors in their home as long as possible. I'm also a licensed clinical social worker and provide therapy on the side.
So those of us that are in the audience, but then we also have an august member of the trustees who also sit on the board. So Drew, may I ask you to speak?
Hi, Drew Ellis, grew up in Glen Ellen, live in Wheaton, and very honored to be part of this, the 708 board. And incredible talent and knowledge that's been brought to bear to put this all together. So I just honor all of everyone's efforts on this. Was it? Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. And I'm a banker.
Your day job.
Yes.
So we're tasked with two competing priorities, right? One is to honor and acknowledge the fact that it's 8:15 on a Tuesday evening, and then to be exhaustive in our ability to tell the story of all of the healthcare needs that are met and unmet here in our community. And so I don't know that we can do those two things full justice within the amount of time that we have. But what I will say is that what we're going to talk about today is just a very small piece of a much larger picture, and also a very small piece of the work that we've been doing since we assembled and were constituted as a board late this summer. And that's important context for folks to know. The good news is that the people on this board did not come to this board with no knowledge prior to joining it. But the second piece is that the timeline for all of the work that's being done is quite brisk. And so we can honor that and own it. I am very pleased and honored to say that in the first month, in our first meeting, we presented a one-year plan for the 708 Mental Health Board. I would like to say that if you were to compare that timeline to that had been operated by a number of other 708 boards, it would compare extremely favorably. And that is available, it has been approved, and we are happy to share it with anyone who wishes to see it. Over the course of the first year, we will also be asked to complete a 3-year plan. But thankfully, we get a little bit more time to do that. Another task that we have ahead of us is to create something called a community needs assessment. And what we're presenting tonight is a small piece of a much larger, frankly voluminous amount of data that we are again blessed to be here in DuPage County having access to. And so had we had to create that community needs assessment from scratch, we would be in a truly difficult circumstance. Because the other thing that I need to share with this group is that we don't get to decide when the levy gets set. We are in fact mandated to set a levy. The folks in front of us, we will make a recommendation, and then you will make a decision about what you wish to advance by December. And we don't get to decide when we constitute as a group. But the good news, again, is that we have all of the people in this room that have just told a story far more powerful and at least as powerful as all of the data that we have at our disposal. And separately, we have the knowledge of this group governing the wisdom of our selections and our recommendations. You also have wisdom. And what will happen now is that we will make recommendations to you, and you will have to determine with your wisdom whether or not you wish to go along with the recommendations as we have put them forward, or whether you wish to adapt them. And that's a difficult decision too. But I hope that what we will be providing to you and have already provided, and I will say that the folks sitting at the big table have had an opportunity to review at least briefly the information that we're presenting today. What I hope you will see is compelling evidence both of the need that we have in this community and of our capacity as a 708 board to make meaningful change given resources and the ability to do so. And so with that in mind, and I don't know if this is not here, so bear with me here. I am not going to go slide by slide. Again, happy to share these slides with anyone who wishes to see them. But there are a few things that I want to highlight. Every 3 years, DuPage County does a complete assessment. There are 4 steps to that assessment process, and one of them is something called the landscape review. We are currently doing a landscape review here in DuPage County that will be available in January. However, this is the most recent that was completed. I happen to be the president of Impact DuPage, the organization that conducts this analysis. And this is a survey that had 1,600, just a little bit under 1,600 respondents. And the question was, what are the 3 greatest strengths of DuPage County? Good schools, low crime, and parks Parks and Rec were the three that were cited as top strengths. And what do you think are the three most important health concerns in DuPage County? The first listed was drug abuse by 44% of those who responded. The second, mental health problems by 43% of those who responded. And the third, too much screen time or technology use, arguably also having consequences for mental health. The top three risky behaviors in DuPage, similar question but slightly different. Drug abuse again, number one, 58%. Alcohol abuse, 34%. And too much screen time again, 30%. And then this is where I think this is actually something that we really want this board to think about. Where should the community focus its attention to make things better in DuPage County? Number one, access to mental health treatment. Number two, access to alcohol and drug abuse treatment. And number three, after those two, good jobs and a healthy economy. The idea that that wouldn't be the first on the list is probably indicative of just how highly placed and concerned people are about mental health treatment and drug and substance use disorders. There have been a lot of people talking about return on investment and also the expense of not investing. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time repeating statistics that have already been shared, both about early intervention and around mental health services. But it's notable to say that it is easy to find data in regards to return on investment where it relates to mental health, substance use disorder, and early intervention services, the three services that we as an organization will be most focused on trying to support. People tend to think about mental health in a very black and white way, but it's really a false way of thinking about it. We think about mental health as being a particular diagnosis or psychosis or thoughts of self-harm. But actually, mental health is a much broader category, and the costs and consequences for society when you don't treat mental health well are also much larger and broader. And so for folks who may not see this as the area where we should be spending time and attention, someone earlier said something about the fact that you can pay for something here or you can pay for something there. And in reality, the truth is that when we don't invest in effective mental health care, the cost to our economy, the cost to our children, the cost for our health care, and the cost to society are actually quite profound. This board appropriately asked the 708 board to come back with some data that they could really consider as they determine how much an appropriate levy might look like. And so with that in mind, I want to present, and I will not read through these numbers again, but would invite you to look at them carefully, how many of our neighbors have behavioral health needs. The first column there, which folks may not be able to see from the back, is how many of our DuPage County neighbors have different mental health needs. And the second is how many Milton Township residents are estimated to have particular mental health needs. I would like to note that the Milton Township estimate of individuals discharged from DuPage County hospitals with a behavioral health diagnosis in 2016, this number therefore being lower than it is today, was 2,375 people. This is not someone who was treated for a mental health need. This was someone whose illness was of sufficient severity that they needed to be treated in a hospital setting for a mental health need. This data is around adults who binge drink. And what you cannot see, and I apologize to the folks in the back, you will absolutely not be able to read this, but what I will tell you is that what is represented on this slide and a number of other slides that mirror it is on the top left, DuPage County numbers, and then a number of towns located within Milton Township. DuPage County has a 19.2% value on adults who binge drink, which, by the way, compares unfavorably to U.S. counties and is also trending in the wrong direction. So we are a healthy county, but we are not a healthy county here. And what follows is Carroll Stream, Glen Ellen, Glendale Heights, Lombard, even I have a hard time reading it, and Wheaton. And what I will note is that Milton Township, as compared to DuPage County, favors negatively in every single municipality. We are doing worse than the rest of our DuPage County neighbors in this category. So we talked about how many of our neighbors have behavioral health needs, but this is actually a slide about how many of our youngest neighbors have behavioral health needs. And we've talked a lot about that today. But it's worth noting that Milton Township estimates would suggest that there are almost 2,500 children aged 3 to 17 with an ADHD diagnosis. That there are almost 1,900 children aged 3 to 17 who have been diagnosed with anxiety, and 1,900 children who have had a diagnosed behavioral problem. The last number is children who have been diagnosed with depression aged 3 to 17. I think a lot of us think depression is something that happens as we get older. But this suggests that almost 1,000 of our Milton Township children have been diagnosed with depression. The slide on the right side there, that schema, is a visual of how many child and adolescent psychiatrists exist in the nation. And all I want you to see there is that the places where there are mostly sufficient supplies are green. There's no part of that map that is green. The places where there is a high shortage is tan, that upward corner, and the place where there is a serious shortage is the rest of the county. I'm sorry, the rest of the nation. We have serious mental health scarcity all throughout the United States of America. This is not just a Milton Township problem, but it's certainly one that we own as well. Mental health and suicide. Unfortunately, too many people came here today and talked about their lives having been touched by suicide. And again, what I want to show here is that DuPage County, the healthiest county in Illinois, is not faring very well compared to our neighbors, where it relates to age-adjusted hospitalization due to mental health or due to suicide and intentional self-inflicted injury. Unfortunately, we are unfavorable to other counties in Illinois on both of those numbers. Most of the data that we're going to talk about today happened before COVID was even a word we knew. And that's important because it means that if you're dipping your ladle into that river and you're looking at data that was published in 2018 or 2017 or 2016, you have to recognize that unfortunately the news has gotten much worse and not better. Here in DuPage County, we had a 23% increase in suicides in the first 6 months of 2020. That is another pandemic. Cook, Lake, DuPage, Kane, and McHenry counties all saw spikes in overdose deaths in 2020 compared to the previous year. We had 112 opioid overdoses last year. And you don't have to take it from me. Our own coroner, Richard Jorgensen, said that we are not turning this ship around. It's getting worse. He said that things are worse under COVID-19 than they were prior. I really just want to point out one piece of this slide, and I actually think another colleague might have referenced it. I think that Dave talked about the Pulse survey. This is a slide that shows the average share of adults reporting symptoms of anxiety and or depressive disorder in January through June of 19 versus January of 21. The orange is 21. The increase is dramatic, and as Dave said, fourfold. The other thing that we are all highly sensitized to is exactly how difficult this has been for all of us grappling with the isolation of COVID. but most remarkably for our senior neighbors, because they were disproportionately affected, and they continue to live, in many cases, a far more isolated life than they ever thought they would at this stage in their lives, and that any of us would ever wish for. And the problem is that loneliness and social isolation have dramatic health consequences, and they are having dramatic health consequences for seniors. Social isolation amongst older adults is associated with $6.7 billion in annual Medicare spending. And the Coalition to End Social Isolation and Loneliness has made a number of policy recommendations, the first of which is maintaining and improving access to mental and behavioral health services that mediate the mental health implications of social isolation and loneliness. We are in a position to do that. So many of the folks that came and spoke today spoke incredibly inspiringly and passionately on the topic of the impact of screening and therapeutic services for children. But I just want to note that in Illinois, 70,000 children under the age of 3 are at risk for developmental delays, but only 33,000, less than half, are currently receiving early intervention services. Think about the consequences for those 35,000 folks that aren't receiving those services in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and 20 years. Persons with disabilities living in poverty, and again, this is DuPage and Milton specific data. The DuPage number is troubling enough. 14% of individuals who are diagnosed as having disability are living in poverty in DuPage County. I think most of us would find that unacceptable. In Glen Ellen, that number is double. 23.8% in Glen Ellen. And in Wheaton, 16.7%. Significantly worse than DuPage County as a general rule. We can do better than that. One of the things that this board has to decide what to do with is how to invest in most meaningful ways whatever resources you as a group decide to fund this project to support it. And one of the things that I think we really want to be thinking about is how to be most creative and also responsive with our funding. And so what you'll see here is a schema that's intended to show that, in fact, what we have the ability to do is first and foremost to fund annual awards, but also to invest funding in other targeted ways that are thought to be deeply impactful. Things like crisis response, those things to which you can't necessarily predict, but you must still respond. Community education, professional training, capital projects, mini grants where a small investment might make a big difference. This is something that's a little bit different than what some of our 708 board colleagues do, but it is what we would recommend we should be doing. The last slides get awfully wonky, but it's probably some of the most important information that the township board is going to have to determine. And so what we want you to know with this slide and the slide that follows is that we do, in fact, have a plan, and once we receive evidence that that plan has funding support, we are poised to be able to hit the ground running and invest those dollars where they can make the most impact quickly. The first thing is to make sure that we have our numbers straight. And so what you'll see there is 2021 and 2020 actual percentages of levy using your levy dollars, the dollars that have already been levied, as a predictive number for what would happen for a 708 board. And what you'll see is that tax bills come due, and then people pay them, and it doesn't all come in one fell swoop, and it comes gradually over the course of a number of months. And so you need to know that, and you need to be able to anticipate and plan around it. Because one year may look a little different than the next. We've taken 2 years of data and then forecasted what we would anticipate on a month-by-month collection based on 2021 and 2020. And so what you'll see is that at the end of the period of time, beginning in May and continuing through January, you don't have 100% of your property taxes collected, and you never will. So you need to assume a number that's a little bit lower than whatever it is you set as a levy. But nonetheless, you get pretty close. 99% is the forecasted production, 99.3 actually. And then, based on an assumption of a $1.125 million levy, which is what this 708 board has recommended, 1.125 in year one, we can predict what we would receive in tax revenues to be able to reinvest into community services. And that's what you see in the second column from the right. So in May, $41,000 that would be received. The subsequent June, 519, almost 520,000, et cetera, et cetera. That may not be precisely when those numbers come in, by the way, but it's a fairly good proxy for what one would anticipate if indeed we received the recommended levy of 1.125 million. So this is the budget, not a final, but again, something for this board to consider. What we would recommend in terms, and what we could predict, in terms of both expenses associated with operating the board, and also grant awards, or funding awards, excuse me, that we would be able to use to support community. There are a couple of assumptions that I want to talk about here. One is that this 708 board began its work in July of this year, but no dollars will be collected or received before May of next year. There are still expenses that the township is paying for as we currently speak. And so what you see in that April column, represents costs that we need to be able to honor in our forecasting and expenses. Then what you see is the extrapolation of what we would anticipate would come in expenses over the remaining 12 months. If we were to have a levy of $1.125 million, what you would expect would be an ultimate collection of about $1.117. And so that is the number off of which this budget forecast is based. We do not, in fact, set a budget until the spring. But again, the timing of all of this is problematic, right? Because you have to have a sense of what you would spend on and how you would spend it, even though you don't actually create the budget off of which you would be governed until the spring. But it's fair to ask the question. And so that is what I present to you as a recommendation. What I want to note is that this budget assumes that we have an annual grant award under this model of $750,000. And that subsequent to that annual grant of $750,000, you also see mini grants, special RFPs and capital projects, professional education and training, and community outreach and education that represent the remainder of the funding awards that would be provided out. What that model provides is flexibility, because we don't know precisely what applications will come to us in that first funding cycle. What you do know is that you want to be prepared to be able to fully fund all of those projects that are of high quality and have outcomes that align with what the community needs assessment has said the community needs. But this model preserves a level of flexibility such that if more funding or less funding is supported with that annual grant fund, you can flex up or down some of the other funding awards, also incredibly important and valuable to serving our community needs and our community-based organizations in a way that complements those initial awards. And that is also, I think, a piece of what distinguishes what the recommendations coming to you are from perhaps what has been done in some of the other recent 708 experiences. Because they didn't have the flexibility when they funded less or greater amounts in that initial funding cycle to then be responsive and ensure that the levy was being used responsibly for the remainder of the year. So what we hope is that this proposed forecast gives you both some food for thought and some confidence that we do in fact have the plan that we would need to have to be able to be successful in year one, and also to be able to be positioned to make a meaningful investment in what this whole room has spent our night telling us is a huge and in fact growing problem. And with that, I will stop and invite questions either for other members of the board or myself.
Those excellent presentation, by the way. Thank you for putting this together.
And if I could just add one thing, just to put some context to these numbers too. I mean, we heard from 16 agencies today, and I heard 5 of them attach sort of a number to, you know, their presentation, and just those 5 agencies total $400,000. So that's just 5 agencies that could potentially come before our 708 board and ask for up to $400,000. We have provided you with a list of 50 agencies, at least, that serve Milton Township, that could potentially come before the 708 board to request funds for their services. And so, you know, the 750 for our annual awards, you know, just kind of seeing what was spoken here today, already a big chunk of it has been, you know, requested in a sense. And so we want to make sure that you all know that, you know, there are a lot of other agencies that are going to be requesting funding, and that you, like the chief said, you can't overfund this. You just can't. And so we appreciate, you know, all the voices here today, and it's our job as a 708 board to walk alongside them and to, you know, help them amplify their voices in front of all of you as you make your decision about the levy. And so we just appreciate all of their participation. So thank you to everybody.
And you can see from the presentation of all the agencies, they all are hurting financially. And you can see how the funding is drying up for mental health through foundations and through the state, through local government. So this is something that's really needed if we want to keep DuPage County as one of the best counties in the country.
Thank you, Doctor. I would now ask the board if they have any questions before we move on. Anything to say?
I don't currently have any questions. I appreciate your presentation. I was able to pour over a lot of these numbers when I received them earlier today. So thank you very much.
Anyone else? Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. And a thank you to the folks behind us on this row and behind us on this row. If I'm being honest, we reached out to invite participation in this meeting on Saturday. And the fact that this room is as full as it is, with 48 hours notice, 72 if I'm being generous, for a group of people as busy as you are, it is a remarkable show of your investment, your passion, your commitment, and your confidence. And I really admire that, and I really appreciate it.
I can definitely say that they appreciate you, Kara and Shannon, and all the rest of the 708 board. Now, at this point, trustees have any questions or comments related to the 708 board, and them, obviously, anyone else, I want to give them the respect to say anything. If not, I will go to trustee comment. Does anyone have anything to say in trustee comment?
Yeah, are we in trustee comment now?
We are.
Okay, so, I wanted to thank everybody for coming out and giving us all your really comprehensive presentations. I do appreciate that. As we said in the workshop, there's an obvious need here in Milton Township, DuPage County, Illinois, and America. Really worldwide for mental health services and the subsequent funding. Milton Township here, we of course, we're at the county seat, so we have pretty much every service within our township at our ready. It's actually really convenient. We get the great privilege of being approached about funding them all. And so, that is quite the burden, as you can imagine. To have to go over what to fund this with, and how do you put a price on it? So, but of course, as township trustees, we, as somebody said earlier, we were elected to represent the taxpayers of this township, and to make sure that everything, not even just the 708 board, but everything within the township is being money-wise handled correctly, that the taxpayers' dollars are being spent wisely. My thing on this is with the amount that we're going to eventually levy for this. Last time we met, you got a little taste of kind of where we were at with what we wanted to fund this at. It went from 1.125 down to 500,000. Okay, I think that after a couple conversations that occurred, we obviously know that 500,000 is just not going to cut it, and it wouldn't even cut it to show us what you're capable of doing, or what an amount of money good can do, right? So we are willing to go up from that a bit. As far as that goes, my personal stance on it is I think that $1 million is a bit much right now, and the reason being is that I think I would like to personally see a representation next year of what you've done with the money we've given you. All right, and so that being said, what is that dollar amount? After a couple conversations, this board seems to be pretty comfortable around 0.0137, and that being 800,000. And so, which was actually a little bit more than we had even talked about in the past several days. But so, do you have anybody have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would just say, when we look at the table and we look at Milton Township and we look at our EAV, we're talking about substantially more per household than was spoken about in Bloomingdale, and I really appreciate that additional information. We're talking about roughly $130 a household for the median household value in Milton Township. Quite frankly, that's a little more than I was thinking of going, but we really have analyzed this situation, and we've taken the data and we've taken the studies into account. At this point, are we comfortable entertaining a motion for funding of the 708 board?
At this point, we're not there yet. This is just a trustee comments, and we'll have to get to that point. So, Yes, absolutely. Comments are good. That's no problem. Motions, not yet.
I want to do the last.
Sure.
Yeah, so, you know, at the last meeting,
Well,
Excuse me,
it's
one
like,
sec.
if it's 708 board, this period of time is for trustee comments on things other than the levy. You can certainly do it now, but do y'all have time, once there's a motion and a
Yeah.
second on the actual levy, there'll be time to discuss it? But it's up to you, you can do it right now,
Well,
or you can do it
I
then.
think at this point, we've already had 2 talks, so
Keep it going.
hopefully nobody throws bricks and tomatoes at us, but let's say go ahead.
thanks, I think my position was pretty clear at the last meeting. You know, I wanted to honor the work of the 708 board and all the hard work that the board has done. And I understand that, you know, I understand their recommendation. I like to think that I was part of the crafting that. I understand that, you know, the other people on the board, you know, are in different places. And it's unrealistic to think that we're gonna get, you know, everything that was asked for. I think in the spirit of compromise, I think we've kind of come together. We were much further apart, and I'm feeling, you know, that everyone's kind of come closer to the center to do this. The other thing I really want to make a point is, you know, I wanted to really thank our supervisor for all of his efforts and you know, really spearheading the 708 board and you know, being kind of a tireless effort advocate for all of us. Again, it's like any transaction. It's you know, as we walk away from the table, if everybody's is a little bit upset, that means that they have a good deal. So, but again, I wanted to really thank, you know, our supervisor for his really dogged efforts to try and get the 708 process moving forward, and we're all committed to the board's success.
Thank you so much. That means a lot. I selected this board to serve. I believe they would do a fantastic job with what they have. The members of the 708 board did their homework. They didn't just come in here and throw things at a wall. And, well, they kind of did. Kind of threw it at the wall. It was amazing effort. This wasn't something that you took from another board to show what their success was. You showed what you're going to do. Personally, between all of us here, I really enjoy this board. These guys are really tireless. They're not just, yeah, let's go. Let's go. We're thumbs up and not looking at all the facts. Trustee Malenko, excellent in what he does. Trustee Castle, same way. Drew Ellis is the voice of reason. He's on the board. So I'll say this, when we come together with a number, it's pretty unified. And I firmly believe the fully funded request that they asked, I don't think that's out of line. They could have asked for a lot more, guys. You look at the numbers, and it's 7 million, 8 million. No, I don't think this board would ever go to that route, but what we want to do is the right thing and make sure whatever funds we give, we know that being said, I really appreciate all you guys do. No hokiness, all friendship together with you guys. So, that being said, thank you for all your comments. We were a little ahead of ourselves, but we're gonna jump back into the board meeting now. So, again, we'll go into it very shortly. Now we're going to close the trustee comments, talk about unfinished business, the audit, the follow-up. We have an accountant now that works for our board. Patrick is his name. He's helping me with this audit process. We are now going into a month late on our audit. We're getting to the point where they're gonna start coming over and meeting with us and putting this all together. They filed all the right paperwork. Patrick is watching them, who is our accountant, and he confidently spoke that everything is done right, and they're behind themselves. I think the board shares the same disappointment as I do. So that being said, we just want to get through this audit. Mr. Senek is the president of Glen Ellen. I'm sure you're laughing because you're feeling it too, right? Okay. So that being said, we'll revisit this once again next month, and I hope to have very good news for you there. As far as other unfinished business in the miscellaneous others, I don't think we have any at this point, so we're going to go ahead and go to new business. I am going to ask for we're going to talk about a resolution number 2021-10, a resolution authorizing an agreement with the Township Road District for employee cost sharing. Our very own Andy, who is working with us, she also splits her time up with the 708 board, and she also splits her time up with the road district in helping with bonds and issuing. So I just want to make a quick, I'd like to hear a motion to approve this resolution. If I could, second. Got that. Is there any discussion on that?
Where am I finding this in the packet? I'm sorry.
It's under new business, resolution A.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm so sorry, the actual resolution will be in there.
Thank you.
You all good? Okay. So I got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, so that resolution 2021-10 is now approved. The clerk and myself will sign that resolution. Oh,
I'm waiting
go
for
ahead.
it
You were letting me just
I was
go,
letting
right?
you, yeah.
Thank you, thank you.
If you moved on to the next one, I would have stopped you. Trustee Ellis,
Yes.
trustee Malinko.
2022 board meeting dates, and we have a resolution number R-21-11, and those are for our meeting dates. The only meeting that is been changed from our normal second Tuesday of the month is November 15th, 2022. That is because the voting day is December 8th. That day we want to give everybody ample time to get out and vote, do your thing. So it is going to be, that's the only day that's affected. So can I have a motion to approve that resolution for the board meeting dates?
So moved.
So moved. Second. Thank you. And any discussion? Okay. Clerk, hearing none, Clerk Nafwani, if you could please call the roll.
Trustee Castle,
Yes.
trustee Ellis,
Yes.
trustee Malinko.
Yes.
President Renio.
Yes. Okay, our new 2022 holiday schedule, resolution number R-21-12. We have one new date for day of observation, and that would be Juneteenth, and that is Monday, June 20th. That's the only Oh, in the general election, we're going to recognize that, November 8th, which we just talked about. So, is there any discussion on that before we go to a roll? Can I have a second? Okay, no, I should say no discussion at this point, right? No discussion? Nathwani, can you please call a roll?
Yep. Trustee Ellis?
Yes.
Trustee Castle?
Yes.
Trustee Malenko?
Yes.
Supervisor Mena?
Yes, and I know Nathwani is not your first name, by the way, Clerk Nathwani, so we will pass that, by the way, that resolution, now it's done. Now, to, I think what everybody's been waiting for, the tentative 2022-23 levies for the following funds. We are going, now I've given everyone ample time in reviewing and approving the levy through the workshop and everything else. We had ample time to look at everything. So we received our highway department funds. If I could get a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
Second, any discussion on the highway? Hearing none, can I please get a roll call?
Hey Mary, do we vote on them all at once or one at a time?
You should vote on this one separately.
Okay.
And then, I know they're grouped, there's a grouping of them for the township, but yes, the tentative levy for the highway district.
Okay, I
is
just want to double check. Okay. Trustee Castle?
Yes.
Trustee Ellis?
Yes.
Trustee Malenko?
Yes.
Supervisor Tadino?
Yes. Okay. So now, is there a motion to adopt the 2022-23 tentative levy for the special police fund?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion to that tentative levy? No discussion? And having a second, please, can you call that, oh, actually, well, actually, there is no discussion. So go ahead and call that.
Trustee Castle?
Yes.
Trustee Ellis?
Yes.
Trustee Malenko?
Yes.
Supervisor Mena?
Yes, and that tentative levy is now, the special police fund is adopted. Now to the mosquito abatement district fund. You guys have all read on that. If I could get a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
Second, is there any discussion on this mosquito abatement levy? Shouldn't be any because it's not going up or down. Any discussion? If not, Clerk Nathwani, if you could please call.
Trustee Malenko?
Yes.
Trustee Castle?
Yes.
Trustee Ellis?
Yes.
Supervisor Mena?
Yes. Okay, now the Town and General Assistance Fund, this will be grouped together, is that correct?
Well, it's contained within one levy ordinance, so it is town, community, mental health board, and general assistance.
Okay. And you all have received that tentative levy. I would now entertain a motion. Can I get a motion?
Well, but this has the 708 board, and so the tentative levy.
Oh. I think I was calling that out
Well,
separately.
in your packet, you can call that one out separately if you'd like. In your packet, you've been provided 3 different versions of the ordinance to allow you the opportunity to consider changes. So I suppose if you'd like to break them out and to do 3 different votes, that would be appropriate. Or since you're talking about different levies, or you could adopt it as a group if you could come together on what you're.
Well, so the town,
funding amounts.
general assistance, and then community, which I would like to do, because I want, there's gonna be discussion.
Just do the community mental health, yeah, but you got it right.
I do.
Do you want to do general fund, general town fund, or are they?
Town and general assistance. Which is written out just like that. We will do the town and general assistance fund together and do the community mental health separately. So the town and general assistance fund, can I get a motion to approve that budget? That levy, sorry.
So moved. Second.
Okay. Any discussion there? Clerk Nathwani, please call the roll.
Trustee Castle?
Yes.
Trustee Ellis?
Yes.
Trustee Malenko?
Yes.
Supervisor Mena?
Yes. Okay. Community Mental Health 708 Board. Everyone's here. Excuse me, guys. Okay. So we have tentative numbers put together. At this point, I would like a discussion. So I'm going to open it up for discussion.
Well, you should have a motion on the floor to approve it, and if you want to start with the you can start it any way you
Yes.
want, but you should get a
So-
motion for what levy number you want, if you want to start with the levy amount requested, or if there's a different levy amount.
There's a levy amount requested of 1.125 million, and so that's what we're going to start with. So.
And you can start with a motion in a second, doesn't mean ultimately that that would be the number, to the extent you don't want it, you can have a discussion on the number if you want to start with that motion. Or if you want to start with a motion for a different
Yes.
number.
Well, let's do the motion for at least discussion.
I would entertain a motion for the $800,000 figure, which is a levying rate of 0.0137%.
There being a first and a second. And that is at 800. Clerk, well, let's go ahead and have a discussion on it, please. Is there any discussion?
So, as you know, that we were presented with $1.125 million, and on the low end, one of their trustees suggested $500,000, and we thought that was just a little too low, and then that the 1.125 was a little too high. As we, in representing the taxpayers, would also like to not only help them with these funds, with these tax dollars, but we also want the 708 board to prove through their first fiscal year of what they can do with this money. We feel as though originally we were discussing, we narrowed it down to like anywhere from 600 to 750, and we thought maybe even go up to 800 at the end, because we understand that there was administrative costs and things like that, which inevitably are going to go up.
Like to hear from others.
To go along with that, I would agree. I think it strikes the right balance between fiscal responsibility and providing for the needs of the community.
I'll say again, I think it's, we are doing our best to try and deal with all these competing issues. And again, I do want to honor the people I work with, but I understand that, we had much lower numbers that were also thrown around. So I think it's an imperfect solution to a perfect solution.
Okay. I guess, I always envisioned a number higher than that. And I shared that many times with the people that were my influence. And I'm looking at some of the eyes right now. And it wasn't about taking away from someone else or spending extra money or because I'm doing better than someone else or someone else is doing better than me. The bottom line is, whatever it is that we do grant, I know this board is going to do fantastic things with it. I've entrusted these guys, and I've got a perfect world. A brand new supervisor with unbelievable responsibilities, got a board that cares about everything that goes on in this township. I got surrounding neighbor leaders that surround me with good information. And I know I'm going on and on about it. I thought it was gonna be more, but the board has spoken, and I'm with them as I'm with my 708 board as well. So I will now ask Yadav, our clerk, to call the roll.
Trustee Ellis,
Yes.
trustee Castle,
Yes.
trustee Malenko.
Yes.
Supervisor Marino.
Yes. Okay. At this point now, we were going to, there is nothing else on any other miscellaneous or others. I would ask for a motion to adjourn. What's that?
Second.
Wait a minute.
I'll just look at my time.
Did I do something wrong? You did good. You did good.
I'm sorry, I missed. I second.
Voice vote.
All in favor?
Aye. Sure. Great job. You know,